It is 9:02. I'd like to welcome you. I am Fabio Salvatierra. I am the AGA official of the South American ICAO office. Before beginning, I would like to tell you that this meeting is being recorded for our own registers and to facilitate the preparation of the report. But if any participant has any objection for this to be shared publicly, let us know. That would be the intention. But if there is any objection, we can share it with a controlled access. Well, anyway, to start the meeting, I'm pleased to have the South American Regional Office Director, Fabio Rabbani. Once again, thank you very much. Fabio, over to you, please. Thank you very much, Fabio. Good morning, everybody. I hope you're all well, and I hope that gradually we'll be resuming our face-to-face meetings. Virtual meetings have their advantages, but some limitations as well, which is something like having a chance to do some networking and share experiences, get different opinions. And as Pablo saying, there will be a recording of this session. Maybe some of you will feel a bit shy about making comments, but the idea is to have this like a face-to-face meeting, and the intention is to overcome the difficulties and hopefully very soon to resume our face-to-face meetings. The challenges we have and we have had throughout the years have not changed. It seems that gradually we are adding or facing new barriers that we would have to identify and try to mitigate them as we recover the civil aviation system. While air traffic grows again, we know that some initiatives that had already been identified are becoming more and more urgent to be implemented. Actions to optimize the use of infrastructure in airspace, some of them. And that was identified a long time ago. We have several regulations and standards and guidelines regarding the way to work in order to improve efficiency of air traffic. And this adds very much to the work several states are doing to increase their capacities, to increase the capacity and efficiency of their air navigation services and airport operations. So the idea has always been to identify where the implementation of A-CDM is necessary, where the authorities participate, and our multi-regional team that's CARSAM, that is the Caribbean, South America, and Central America. The implementation Grapicas group has a specific project regarding this aspect, and all the aspects that we have seen in the new global air navigation plan 6 has a number of methods that require from us to identify the needs and justify the costs associated to each initiative. And that is why this meeting brings a number of states where the needs to manage air traffic more efficiently is of the essence. Here we have states that are together with the representatives of the airports and the region. So the idea is to share experiences, because the idea is later on to disseminate these initiatives of implementation of A-CDM concept. And that, together with all the other efforts related to ATFM, is enormous. And that is why we have our airdrome officials and air traffic management officials present. So The idea is to discuss and assess the guidance material that was prepared in our region, because once we have volume 3 of the Air Navigation Regional Plan, the A-CDM initiatives will become our commitments. So we can give our feedback on the material prepared so it can be improved, and then it could be used as a reference to be used by our country's airports and air navigation service providers in the region. So the time is now, while we are concluding the regional plan has not been approved yet, but it will generate our commitments and even the implementation of A-CDM. So now it's very important. So the guidance material that is being used regionally is appropriate, and your experience will be very important to improve the document that will be a living document. So it is a great opportunity now. So in spite of the fact that this is a challenge to have a virtual meeting, I encourage you to participate actively, to share your views, your concerns, because this is a learning environment. We could add very much to the process if you all participate. So I really appreciate the participation of everybody. I cannot ignore the presence of Brazil, Colombia, DGCA of Colombia, CAA, Panama, DGCA of Peru. All of you have had fantastic experiences showing the importance of authorities encouraging and facilitating the implementation of A-CDM, and we have practical examples. And I would also like to highlight the participation of airports, the Guarulhos Airport, El Dorado Airport, Arturo Benitez Airport of Chile, Tocumen International Airport, airport partners, and of course, thank our organizations that have supported this work under the 06901 project, CANSO, ACLAC, NAGA. So thank you very much to all of you. Thank you very much for your presence and participation, and I hope we have a great meeting. Fabio, over to you. I'm sorry if I took too long. No, no problem at all. Thank you very much, Fabio, for your kind words. And highlighting the work being done by this regional office with the states to optimize airspace. It's very important to identify where this is necessary. And that is why we are inviting this first group of states with the respective international airports. Because these implementations are not to be implemented just because ICAO says so, but rather it's a number of tools that have to be justified based on costs, and that's very important. Well, just give me 1 second to get organized. Give me 1 second, please.
Okay. ¿Alguien me puede confirmar si se ve la pantalla una?
Can you see my screen? Yes, we can. Good morning, everybody. Again, thank you very much for participating in this meeting. And as our director said, this is an initiative of RLA Project 901. It's a project that have the South American states in order to adopt the initiatives to improve the regional airspace and the bi-regional airspace as well. Let's see some administrative aspects. This is the agenda that you can get in the meeting portal. I'll give you the link in a bit. We'll have 4 agenda items. For those of you who are familiar with ICAO meetings, usually we discuss the meetings and in the meetings, there are some agenda items, and the participants have the possibility to present some working papers, information papers. But this meeting is designed in another way. That is to facilitate open discussion, a bit less formal in style. But as Fabio said, the idea is to try in this virtual environment to share experiences openly in a transparent manner for the benefit of everything we want to do in a harmonized way. So the first agenda item is what this Graphics project is all about, what the regional office is doing with the states and Graphics, and then we would go to agenda item 2, where 2 airports and states will share their experience of implementation. Good for those who have not started yet or who are just about to do so. They can benefit from this. And then agenda item 3 is getting some feedback. So depending on the time this takes, we will be allowing you to share experiences and give some room for discussion, or maybe after each participation, we can open the floor for discussion. But we will be doing so as we go. We'll decide that as we go. This is the schedule proposed for the meeting, but as I said before, it's quite flexible. We have meetings today and tomorrow, so the idea is to have enough time to be able to generate discussions so that nobody is left out and everybody can have a chance to ask questions and draw good conclusions. Some administrative aspects. You are familiar with the simultaneous interpretation aspect, right? If you want to listen in English, you just select the English channel at the bottom of the screen. And since the event is being translated, when you take the floor or ask a question, please select the language in which you prefer. If you speak in Spanish, select Spanish channel. Let me double check if I did it myself. Yep, I'm in the Spanish channel. Now, the presentations and recordings will be posted on the event's website. But as I said at the beginning, if any of you has any objection to sharing the recording, just let us know. This will be a participatory meeting. It's a meeting, it's not a webinar, to guarantee that possibility. So if you want to participate, just click on the reactions button to raise your hand. And as we see them showing up, we will be giving the floor to each of you. As our director said, we'd like to thank the international organizations that are supporting us with the organization of the event, and CASO, ICLAC, and IATA, and also share the initiative with your members. Now, let's start with our first agenda item. Let me show you a document that was distributed first internally, but let me share it so we can all be on the same page. It's the agenda. After the opening words, we're a bit behind. We have the presentation of a working paper on the Graphics project. I hope I can be brief. This presentation can be found on the event's website. And then Fernando Hermosa will talk about the ATFM in the SAM region. As you know, ATFM is very important for A-CDM, where ATFM is present. So I think Fernando will talk a little bit about the initiatives in the region, because, well, maybe some of our colleagues in our airports need to know where we're headed to take all this into account in their own implementations. And then we'll go to agenda item 2. So Cesar Freire from the Guarulhos Airport in Brazil can give us a short presentation on the Guarulhos experience. Guarulhos is one of the airports with the highest level of traffic in the region. And I think it's been implementing this A-CDM for a longer period, I think. And then Daniel Rega from the El Dorado Airport will give a short presentation as well. The experience of this case that is in the Bogota Airport, the implementation of airport A-CDM, and then we'll give the floor to Michael Guzman from LAC, together with our colleague of DGCA Peru, Sally, will be talking about the implementation of the experience at the Lima airport. And then we'll give some time for feedback, to share experiences. And then after each presentation, if you have any questions, we can just give you the floor. And if the discussion takes too long, we can leave it for the feedback session. On day 2, the agenda will be a bit simpler. We just have the feedback session just in case something was left out. And then the conclusions at the end of the meeting, depending on how it goes, we will be deciding whether we can do this one of these sessions today or move it to tomorrow. Are there any questions or comments regarding this proposal, this proposed agenda?
Gracias, Alfonso. Bueno, creo que
Thank you, Alfonso.
no hay comentarios, entonces vamos,
If there are no comments, then
como dicen acá en Perú, de frente a
let's
las notas.
go straight to the
También iba a comentarles
working papers. Oh, by the way,
tenemos también
we
invitados,
also have some guests,
realmente las organizaciones internacionales,
international organizations, ACLAC, IATA, and CANSO. And our intention was that in the feedback session on day 2, to allow the colleagues from these organizations to give their input that is from their organization viewpoint, not only about this implementation, but also about other implementations that their organizations have done in other places. So tomorrow we will have that feedback. But of course, you are invited to make comments about the presentations so we will have today. Now let me just go to the first working paper. This working paper is available on the meeting website, and basically, for those of you who are not familiar with working papers, in ICAO meetings, we always prepare papers, and in this case, the Secretariat is presenting this paper, and it's an initiative on the project supporting implementation, harmonized implementation of A-CDM in the SAM region. And then there is a section of suggested actions, so that this meeting can take note of the decisions that may be adopted. Since this is an informal session, there are no decisions to be adopted here, but any comments that may be made here, and if there is a consensus on a certain initiative and its importance, we take note of that and we submit it to the pertaining groups, decision-making groups, that is. For example, if in this meeting there's something we all agree should be done, then we would take that input and submit it to a decision-making meeting. And we have some of those meetings in the South American region, and also for the other regions, the Caribbean region and the North American region. Well, so let me give you some background. For a long time, well, a long time ago, ICAO prepared document 9854, which is like a Bible for the aerospace aspects. It's funny because despite the fact that it was written many years ago, my colleague Fernando and myself, we make jokes because it would seem as if a guru had smoked something and had guessed the future, because even today it's still quite valid, despite the fact that it was written long, long time ago. And it's so well written that it's still valid in after all this time. So it said that the main challenge of airport operators will be to provide enough capacity in the airdromes. Well, the traffic growth rates were mentioned here, but with the pandemic, this has stopped. Though some airports are reporting the recovery of levels that existed before the pandemic. And then the idea is to guarantee all capacities are used fully and efficiently. So there's a balance, how the airports can provide enough capacity and how ATM can manage it properly. We also know that the airspace is finite, though it is huge. The current design concepts limit the available capacity. So that is an important challenge for the ATM system. So in analysis that's being carried out in the region, the identification of lack of capacity in some centers. So because of that, we see the need to do something about it, because here we have Ayara colleagues, and we're always receiving feedback about infrastructure problems, saturation, delays, inefficiencies, cost issues, and so on. So at the end of the day, uh, that shows a number of opportunities where the airlines in the past were not able to do anything about it because there was not enough space to operate. There were delay problems, taxiway problems, and this happened to us. So we just completed a workshop about the preparation of volume 3 of the regional plan. We can talk about it a little bit here. And we were talking about it's great for a passenger to arrive early at the airport. If you're a passenger, sometimes there are aircraft where pilots say, oh, we arrived 10 minutes ahead, and it's great. But that shows quite a problem for airport managers, because a congested airport, like a hub airport, you always have to arrive on the dot, not early or later, because everything is planned for a specific moment. So because of this, some airports, some states took the initiative of exploring measures to try to find any latent capacity, or in other words, to use, to have a better use of that capacity that was not being used efficiently. And that is why we get initiatives such as the A-CDM. In the South American region, we saw it as something really good, but we also saw it with some concern, because there's a harmonization issue. There were lots of initiatives that were not being coordinated, and even some initiatives could be implemented independently without any coordination with their own states. So we had this concern that these not harmonized initiatives may impair growth in the region. And that is why what we started to do in the regional office was to start generating more awareness amongst stakeholders, explain what's written in the A-CDM from ICAO, not only from Eurocontrol or FAA or other initiatives, but also from ICAO. ICAO prepared a manual, document 9971, with some provisions of airport CDM, and in July of 2019, there's a proposal submitted to GRAPACASO, which is the regional airspace planning group, to present a project to support implementation of A-CDM. So fortunately, the states approved the project, and we began to carry out this project, not only for the SAM region, but also the CAR region. If you want to see the business case of the project, you can read the note. And part of the project that is one of the initial deliverables of this project was to work in the preparation of a guideline, some regional guidelines for the harmonized implementation of A-CDM. Why? Because the main objective of this project, at least in this phase of the project, was to assist the states that wanted to implement Block 0 A-CDM, which is the first part of the ASRI methodologies, as we will explain later on. The implementations are divided into blocks, and the first block is the implementation of Airport Collaborative Information Sharing Platform. But let's not think about systems, but rather let's think about platform of procedures, where there's a change in culture, how to work in a better fashion. Some colleagues will elaborate on this. And first of all, what we want is to implement this in the states to have a robust base, and then build up the other phases, such as the total airport management and so on. And this first project, in this first phase, the main task was to define this first guide to show the states and airports, based on the best industry practices, what has already been done by Eurocontrol, which is something very complete, and even in some other regions. So we presented this guide so that the current implementations can improve and assess whether there are any differences. And those of you that have not implemented anything can use this as a guide. And the main idea is this one here. What we want is to have a common vocabulary in the region, vocabulary of acronyms and methodologies, to have a common one, because, and this after talking with the European region, that is with Eurocontrol, we've seen that one of the main challenges that they have found in the implementation is this one, actually.
Si en un aeropuerto
If at an
la hora de puestas de calzos
the in-block time is different or is used differently compared to other airports, then we have problems of harmonization. And to the extent that these implementations grow, and it is desirable to connect two airports that have implemented A-CDM, for instance, Bogota and Guarulhos. If tomorrow traffic grows between these two city pairs, and they want to connect their systems in order to have a more situational awareness and better decision-making, but one uses acronyms in one way that are different from the other, there will be a problem, and the pilot goes crazy trying to understand how they should use these parameters. So the idea is to present this vocabulary so that it may be harmonized. And of course, Fernando Hermosa will talk about the ATFM project. Air navigation service providers should use the same acronyms. So we should all speak the same language, and that's the main idea of this project. just to present this in order to find harmonization. In section 3, you find where you can download the guide. It's free in Spanish and English, and fortunately, this project is being carried out within ICAO, but these ICAO projects, we always ask of the states for their active participation through the coordination of the project. Unfortunately, in Replicas 19, Peru suggested a project coordinator, so we'll work more quickly. As I said, this meeting should take note of the information presented in this working paper. The participating airports or the states that are participating together with the ANSP should analyze the level of harmonization amongst their implementations, both underway as well as those being prepared with the regional guides. In other words, to review how close or far we are, and some colleagues will present the results of this, and also to discuss the different experiences and recommendations of the Secretariat. Well, the guide is not cast in stone. There are things that can be improved. And this is a good moment to do that because implementations are starting, except that of Guarulhos. I think the rest of the colleagues, they even paused during the pandemic. So it's a very, very good opportunity to resume the initiatives. In attachment 8 to this paper, there are some stages that we propose for the implementation of this project, stages of the regional project. Right now, we are here in between phases 2 and 3. We are reviewing the guides, and we are reviewing the requirements, because in the end, if we all agree that this guide is the appropriate one, if we all agree that the main airports with certain level of traffic should implement airport CDM in order to ensure at a regional level the optimization of all air traffic, then we can submit this to the groups that make decisions so that these implementations will represent a commitment by the states. For instance, in some regions like Asia Pacific, the states in general decided that each airport with more than 100,000 operations should implement A-CDMs, and that could be valid for a region. Or this region might say the main connection centers of the state should implement airport CDM, or the implementation is already underway, should apply this guide. I don't know. These are things that we will discuss later in the corresponding fora, but basically that's the idea, to give you this information and offer you an open space for discussion. So this is the presentation of our working paper 2. I wanted to see if you had any comments before moving on to Fernando, who will present something about ATFM. Alfonso, please introduce yourself so that everybody will know you. You're known here, but for the colleagues, please introduce yourself. Thank you, Fabio. Thank you very much. Good morning. Greetings, everybody. My name is Alfonso Lobega. I'm Air Navigation Advisor of the Civil Aviation Authority of Chile. Fabio, it's a question I have. Once again, I'm surprised to see that in the working paper, you mention the vocabulary of acronyms. Recently, we finished yesterday a very fruitful meeting on volume 3 of the electronic air navigation plan of the CARSAM regions. And we need, my question is the Secretariat doing this, or this will be assigned to a working group that is the standardization of acronyms, aside from highlighting with what each means, which are the acronyms, we must find what they are. if you allow me, for instance, EUBT is a moment in which so much, so that everybody will understand. Because yesterday I asked Sadie Beaumont from Peru, and he said that the concessionaire takes note of the movement of the aircraft, or when it starts to move manually. It gives me the impression that there is they have a display in their control room in the concessionaire where they identify this moment, but it's not the moment itself because they may be distracted, but a few seconds later they identify that the aircraft is moving. So I think that this is something very moving. This is very important to take into account. Thank you. Thank you, Alfonso. Yes, I think you're right. We take note of this. It is important. In addition to the definition of the acronym, it's important to give a more detailed explanation, even showing ways to obtain this information. I see that Sadie has raised his hand. Sadie, introduce yourself, please. Good morning, everybody. My name is Sadi Beaumont. I'm Inspector of Air Navigation of the DGCA of Peru. Alfonso, nice to see you. Long time no see. No, it's a joke. We just finished a workshop, very fruitful 3-day workshop on preparatory activities to develop the CARSAM air navigation plan. So that's why he made that comment. The importance acquired by A-CDM and the activities for the implementation of A-CDM have been such that the terms involved in A-CDM are being used by ATM, by air traffic management services. So yes, we see the need to standardize these definitions. We need to standardize the acronyms and define their use. And that's how the guide of year control or the Asia Pacific implementation guide stated. And I think that's what we should do with our own guide for the implementation of A-CDM. That by way of comment. And Fabio, I have a question. Are we going to have a time, I don't know if today or tomorrow, to take to review these acronyms and definitions? Thank you, Sadi. Yes, we take notes of your comments. Yes, I think we will have time to review it. Maybe tomorrow we will have time to review the list. And later we have to work with the colleagues of ATFM to make sure that this guide is harmonized. The guide is taken from 1971, which is the same manual of air traffic flow manual of ICAO. But so I don't think there will be any problem, but it's always good to validate and do a cross-check. And also take note of this because we are going to discuss of the current implementation. So there are some opportunities for improvement or comments regarding the use of the name of the acronyms and how they are understood when translated into Spanish. So before giving the floor to Fernando Hermosa of the regional office for the second working paper, is there any additional comment? Very well then, Fernando, are you there?
Sí, aquí estoy, por supuesto.
Yes, I'm here, of course. Good morning, everybody. Go ahead, please. Thank you, Fabio. I see that the computer is Well, I'm ready. My name is Fernando Hermosa. I'm the
Tránsito aéreo y
Air Traffic Management Officer and also Search and Rescue Services of the South American Office. Thank you for the opportunity, Fabio, of speaking in this forum to share with you some ideas about the implementation of the ATFM service in the South American region. This year has been extremely productive. From big crises, we obtain big solutions and initiatives. And here we have several members of the working groups of SAMIC, the South American implementation groups, including Group 3 on ATFM. And we've been able to implement practical initiatives, the implementation of practical initiatives that has given new sense to the implementation of ATFM. We have implemented not only an office or a unit on ATFM or trained personnel, but we are already providing products that we are going to present in a few minutes. I see that the room has experts in different areas. I see air traffic controllers and also colleagues from aerodromes with whom we've worked before. We have different states, 55 participants in total. I will take advantage of this time provided by Fabio. He mentioned document 9854. So I'll take advantage of that cue to share my screen. Do I have that privilege? Can I share my screen? I think so, Fernando, because you're a co-host. Yes. Can you? It's thinking too much, thinking too long. Just a second, please. I should be able, but let's see. No, apparently not. Once again, there it is. So, second screen. You'll see that apparently it's an internet issue. Everything's very slow. I better focus on the working paper. I wanted to show you a chart, but I'll describe it. Some historical data regarding the development of ATFM, but we can do so orally. Let me try again. Are you seeing the working paper? Yes, yes, okay. Good. So, Fabio was saying a few minutes ago that document 9854, this is the ATM operational concept of ICAO, the GATMOC, the global ATM operational concept, dates back to 2005, which is very old. This document included the concept of how the ATM community at the global level, the users, how they saw an air traffic management system at the global level that would be interoperable. At that time, 7 elements of ATM were presented that were in an environment of communication, of course, information management. And one of those elements, aside from airspace management, operation at aerodromes, and so on, was a DCB, the demand capacity balance. Probably these are terms that we share with our colleagues from A-CDM. So the document in 1971 has evolved, I would say gradually. I'm not sure whether at the right pace or not, but in 2018, we had a 3-section document. It's a milestone in this case. Yeah, that's what in 2018, we were presented with the document 1971, and I will highlight the title of the document, Manual for Collaborative Management of Air Traffic Management. Collaborative. I'm sorry? We're seeing working paper on item 1. I cannot move. Yes, I have a problem with my internet. Fernando, do you want me to show the working paper? I'll share my screen to present the working paper. No, what happens is that I haven't started the presentation of the paper. Can you see it?
Mejor vamos, yo suelto la pantalla.
So it must be a problem with my internet. So can you please present the working paper? Yes, sure. We'll do that. Just give me a second to see the working paper. Sorry for this problem. Okay, now you should be seeing on the screen working paper number 3. Can you please confirm? Yes, yes. And you let me know, Fernando. Okay, we're in the introduction. It's fine. I wanted to present just a graph that I have in PowerPoint in a second screen. And that's what I cannot do because of the speed of my internet. I hope you are hearing correctly. Something similar happened yesterday with the presentation of Uruguay. So, very quickly, in 2012, we had the first edition of document 1971. At that time, the document was a CDM, actually. It was something preliminary compared to what we have now. It was the manual for collaborative ATFM management, but only focused on CDM. And then we had another document of ICAO in 2018. We had the manual. It's a relatively new CDM, ATFM, and A-CDM appears in this third edition. And from there on, we have integrated this trilogy. And now we will explain how the 3 areas are linked. Just to close this part, the concept in general is how to balance capacity and demand. In the South American region, the process has been like an example. When you buy an insurance, a car insurance or an insurance for a health insurance, something like that, we do not realize that we need it until we need it. That's a cliche used to compare what we've had. So in the South American region, the states have been implementing ATFM precisely when they felt the pressure of demand capacity balancing in general. So because of that, the implementation has followed a pace determined by those that lack of balance and how each state started to implement measures to mitigate the issue, and that led us to an undesired result in the last 8 years, probably. We've been working on ATFM, but focusing inside. We've lacked integration. We've lacked cross-border work, which has been then better characterized in document 9971 or by Canso and Ayata and other regional examples like Asia Pacific. So the work that we've tried to promote has been not only to promote the ATFM work within each state as a response to its own imbalance issues between capacity and demand, but rather this should be part of a regional integration through linking the activities of ATFM units through practical products, as I said at the beginning. So that has been our vision. This period of reduced traffic has helped create a work environment in the sense that we have focused on these improvements rather than fighting with capacity demand problems. So getting into the presentation of this working paper, just to tell you that ATFM in the region, although it historically started to solve specific congestion issues, we even used that word before. The ATFM activities have focused in the states and have been more oriented to the imbalances, and we've lacked that integration among states and, of course, between the Caribbean and South America in order to create a mesh or a network of operations, which is in the end the purpose of the global plan, the network operations. So this working paper, yes, Sergio, go ahead. Can you hear me?
Voy a hablar en español.
I'll speak in Spanish. I think that you've made a very relevant comment, and I think that it would be good for this to be in the conscience of everybody. If we see the development of the operational model, A-CDM, it started from an effort to better manage the flow en route, which for an aircraft to take off and to avoid delays, something was implemented called the round delay program that solved the problem of airspace congestion, but created a problem of ground predictability, because an airline that had a flight leaving at 3 every day would have a different limitation because of this ATC slot. One day it could leave at 3, the other day at 3:30 or at 4. So the model has been created in order to integrate the airport in this effort to have more balance, because now with the airlines having the capability of establishing their target off-block time and considering the CTOTs, we could develop a takeoff line that is in keeping with both capacities. That would be feasible for the airline because it would have the flight ready, and also feasible in terms of the airspace that could receive the operation. So this is just to reiterate that if, for instance, we have an airport that is in a region with a lot of traffic, where there is congestion in the airspace around the airport, and we establish a CDM program for this airport that has not considered the ETOs, in other words, the extension of the the airspace management, we would still have a problem because we would be creating a takeoff line that is not in keeping with the airspace capacity around the airport. So two things could happen. One, the ATC at some point in time would prevent the takeoff line from departing because the control center would say that they cannot support the takeoff, or the aircraft will take off and will have to apply flow restriction measures. So the two efforts, flow management and CDM at the airport, should be integrated. That's what I wanted to say. Yes. Excellent, Sergio. That example is a very precise. I'll mention other collaborative elements, but in summary, you have summarized this very well, even that has happened in airports in South America. One of the principles of document 9971 is to take into account the impact that ATFM measures have on the users. It's very clear. There are several paragraphs on it. In any case, the ATFM should be transparent, should be seamless. ATFM should aim at temporary measures, provisional measures, and of course, work hand in hand with the airport through CDM. Thank you for your comment. Let's scroll down. So we had this scenario. We were looking inside in several states of the South American region. Then we had the pandemic, and there was a source of a break with the demand capacity balancing. Until 2019, we had several airports in the region that had this problem at certain peak hours. We have had problems with control, not very well planned, or measures were such that the separation between aircraft crossing FIRs or transferring the control from one control center to the other had problems. We also had the domino effect in many circumstances for 2 or 3 years. And then we had this crisis that we are now leaving behind, and we have had some respite for working. In March of this year, a group, the SAM Airspace Implementation Group that works under the SAMIC, identified these aspects. That was in March of this year, and a subgroup, a working subgroup number 3 was established, the GESEA group, that is working hand in hand with the industry. IATA is a member of GESEA. So we developed a work plan. Brazil was the rapporteur, and the idea was to do practical work so that the experts of the region could feel that their efforts, even in a scenario of lack of congestion, could be productive and could be in preparation for the recovery that we are now seeing. So the OPSAM initiative was developed. Microphone, please. So there was an initiative to review the regional ATFM documentation. We had a draft guide for ATFM implementation and a capacity calculation document. So let's continue scrolling down, Fabio, please. So at the virtual meeting in September of this year, from the 20th to the 23rd, the SAMIC analyzed and validated the deliverables of the subgroup 3 and issued some conclusions to approve its application in the region. So the operations plan is a set of initiatives that the South American states have agreed for two main objectives: to exchange data and exchange data in order so that these data may be analyzed through the dashboard. And a second line of action is the conduction of briefing meetings every week and on a monthly basis. These teleconferences have been called the Brisa. The founders of Brisa were Argentina and Brazil, by the way. And to these initiatives, almost all the countries of the South American region have joined. So there you have the link that takes you to the Power BI, and you see the presentation of the dashboards there. Right now, it's just starting. We recognize that we couldn't have baselines because we started the work in August, and the idea is to receive information on flight planning for the following month. And then to receive information on how those flights were conducted, and for instance, the effective of block time, and be able to compare how close or how precise it was planning compared to the actual plan. So with that information that is shared in a spreadsheet, nothing very sophisticated is requested, but through Gray's collaborative work, Adriano Duarte from Brazil is helping us. This dashboard is fed with that information, and we are having the first indicator. In other words, we convert the data that was maybe not being used, and we are turning it into something significant. So in some cases, when the states have delivered, for instance, the programming for September, delivered at the end of August, the scheduling of the flights for September, and at the end of September, they share the list or the effective flight data, the actual off-block time, the actual arrival times. Then we can see how much of the plans were complied with. And we can talk about measuring punctuality to feed the performance and predictability area. So this has given new sense to the work of the units. We generate a CDM, we generate a collaboration amongst the states, and let's scroll down. Also, every Tuesday we have meetings. It's called the Brisa pre-tactical meetings. Since July, we are doing that. The day before yesterday, we had our session this week where we present information for the next 7 days in order to share possible restrictions, NOTAMs, in some cases, traffic forecast, peak hours at the airports, works being carried out at the airports that could represent capacity restrictions. So this is called the pre-tactical Brisa. Information is being presented from Argentina, Brazil, Chile, Panama, Peru, Venezuela, and I think those are the ones that are presenting information. Paraguay, of course.
Well, so now we have an interactive work between all the South American states. We are receiving more and more participation from other states. And remember that we share a daily operations plan with COSESNA. It's document, the daily plan is pre-tactical information that is shared on a daily basis with the neighbors, and we have 7 states, including Costa Rica, sharing daily pre-tactical information with the PDA. PDA, which is the ATFM daily plan. Scroll down a bit more, Fabio, please. The other one is a strategic reset post-operations. So far, we have not had any post-operations emphasis because so far we have not received information on actual traffic or spreadsheets that may show compliance of everything on the month. But in this last session, that will be on the 25th of November, we hope to have some post-operations elements. And now here, it's important to point out that this meeting allows us to get together with IATA, the airlines, and the first opening meeting, which was held on the 28th of October, it was a nice surprise to have American Airlines, Copa, Azul, LATAM, Delta, and I forget some more names. But some of them gave short presentations showing the trends in their own airlines, like, for example, how they are expecting to open up more flights, or how the high season is generating certain decisions made in the airlines. So this is shared with the regional scenario, and we're also analyzing the growth of the demand, of this demand in each administration, and that is why the OPSAM, that is the operations ADFM plan of the South American region, promotes these 2 briefings, and at the same time, it generates information for the ADFM dashboard. There you have the link if you want to use it to analyze all the discussion during Summit 26 held on the 23rd of September, where those deliverables were shown. Just to conclude, and then give way to some questions. As I had said, we had 2 documents of 2019 that were expecting validation from the working group. Those documents were analyzed by a multidisciplinary group led by Argentina, very well supported by a Peruvian specialist, and they had a version of the service implementation, ADFM implementation in the region. This guide, well, the thing is that nobody wants to reinvent the wheel. This is to establish the regional scenario and propose a common path to move forward based on 5 stages, well, actually 3, that would be based on a national service, which in the case of Brazil is quite complex, for example, and based on a national ATFM to go to a cross-border ATFM that is a collaborative one with the adjacent FIRs, and then a South American cross-border. So the SAMIC meeting has approved a schedule of targets to move forward all the way up to the year 2025, hoping to have a cross-border internodal system that may be effective and efficient. We think that the document will support the recovery of demand in the region, and it will be highly positive to reestablish connectivity, air connectivity in the region. The second document that is work in process, we have a meeting tomorrow about that, is to review the capacity calculation manual. Remember, this is a direct message to all of you, because here we have lots of airport delegates and air traffic services delegates. Remember that now we have to focus on capacity measurement of runway and ATS, or the ATS sector, because we've had a radical change of scenario when we still have some sanitary measures and separations on the land side and air side. So the concentration of flights has changed. The hubs have to have a different layout, traffic layout. So this has to be analyzed, including some measurements. For example, Bogota is already managing its runway capacities in El Dorado, and this will be a second contribution maybe for next year. Maybe next year it will be approved. And all this work is in collaboration with several rapporteurs and specialists from several states. So suggested actions, let me mention one that is not here, is to have a collaborative process in all the runway capacity calculation activities. That's very important. This has a direct impact on the ATS scenarios as well, and vice versa. But based on that, we can have a better plan of air traffic services. Vis-a-vis an ATFM plan. Now we need to establish coordinated work between A-CDM and ATFM, not only for runway measures, but also to move forward on OPSAM and the strategic meetings, for example. And to that end, we need data. We know that many states are already working in collaboration, and at some point airdromes become data providers. We need to highlight or strengthen this work. But we do not want any duplication. We do not want different lines to manage data. My suggestion, or our suggestion, that is the Secretariat's suggestion, is to focus on ATFM. That is, the ATFM specialists are focusing on that aspect. At the same time, they get data from ADS automated systems. So in that way, the ADFM contribution, getting contributions from airdromes can also be reflected on the dashboard, and in this way we could be gradually generating significant data and actual performance indicators aligned with the global air navigation plan. Now, regarding, scroll down a bit more, please. I think that's it. Yes. This collaboration I just mentioned should also aim at generating daily plans, ADFM daily plans, and sharing data through the pre-tactical and strategic briefs, pre-tactical every Tuesday, and post-operations. When, Fabio, we could be sharing with you the invitation to the meeting on the 25th of November, because it's open to the airdrome, airlines, air navigation services community in South America. Well, this is all I wanted to share with you at this point. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Fernando, for your presentation. It is very important to know about the efforts being carried out by the region regarding the implementation of ATFM and all the work involved in order to avoid duplicity of efforts, for example, regarding the methodology to calculate runway capacity. This is something that in the airdrome program was discussed to see whether at an airport level, we would be working on a harmonized methodology, but taking into account not only runway capacity, but also some other airport parameters. And in that case, the level of complexity increases so much. So at that moment, the project was put on hold. Why to work double when there are already efforts being made in the ATM scope? So I think that the core message for everybody here is to have coordinated work between all the state groups that are working under ATFM, so that gradually airports may get involved in the process and these efforts, get to know them better, and thus avoid duplicity of efforts. And also it'd be good to guarantee interoperability. As Fernando was saying, that there's work on a national plan and then cross-border plan and then beyond. In the same manner, airports can think first locally, but the look should be aimed at international implementation levels, such as we see in the European model. Well, it could be an advantage, but it is also a disadvantage in our region. The fact that we do not have a similar model like that in Europe. They are regulated by one same agency, which is Eurocontrol, so the rules of the game is the same for everybody. In the United States, it's the most complex system in the world, so there's one air navigation service. And in our case, we have different providers with different characteristics because they are from different states, and we need to take that into account. Well, thank you very much, Fernando. Any questions to Fernando before moving on? No questions? No. Well, Fernando, please send me the data regarding the meeting on the 25th to send out the invitations. Okay, good. Thank you very much. I am going to leave the link on the chat. So we hope to see you there. And remember that every last Thursday of the month, we have the meeting. So we are inviting you first as observers. This meeting is a place where the industry and air navigation services, including airports, can participate, and it will be very interesting for you to be part of this initiative. And in this way, maybe also get some input from the main airports in the region that may be interested in sharing their vision for the subsequent month based on some scenarios that they may be dealing with. Have a great day and a good meeting, of course. Thank you very much, Fernando. Well, now I would like to give the floor to Alexander Cesar Freire from the Guarulhos Airport. Alexander is going to make a short presentation on the Guarulhos Airport with A-CDM. The colleagues from the ZIA are not connected, I'm afraid. But the thing is that the ZIA has a collaboration agreement with Eurocontrol for some or for several initiatives, like some kind of support in the implementation of A-CDM for some time, and they've been working very closely with the Guarulhos colleagues and also some other airports. Alexander can say something about his own experience now. So you have the floor, Alexander. I think that you can share your screen. Can you confirm that? Fabio, can you hear me? Yes, we can. Loud and clear. Well, good morning, everybody. I am Cesar. I am security terminal and terminals and baggage and Guarulhos Airport. I'd like to thank you, Fabio and ICAO, for giving me the opportunity to share the A-CDM experience we have. You may be wondering what the security airport manager has to do with A-CDM. Nothing. But the thing is, as up to September, I was the coordinator of operations center coordinator. In October, I changed the position. Fabio, may I share my presentation? Give it a try, please. You should have it because you're a co-host.
Ahora sí, ya se está viendo en la pantalla.
We can see it now. Yes, I think I have 10 minutes, right, Fabio, for my presentation? Well, yeah, if necessary, just take a bit more. No problem. Okay, well, let's start. To talk about the Guarulhos A-CDM project, we can say that it was structured in 3 phases. Phase 1 includes the specification, development, and training, and the setting up of the ACISP tool that we use here to manage A-CDM. That started in April 2019 and was completed in May 2020. Phase 2, we continue with the specification, development, training, and setting up of the PDS tool and the go live. It started in May 2020, and it's been 1 year with the in the Guarulhos Airport. Phase 3, definition, development, and acceptance of all the KPIs of and the project. We started last November of last year, and we completed it this month. The main highlights of the project that I want to share. The project was led by CISEA. CISEA is an IT area, IT for the development of the CISEA, with support of all the A-CDM partners, Guarulhos Airport, airlines, ground handlers, control tower, and CGNA. The 2 tools we have are ACISP and PDS. They were developed by a fully Brazilian company, Cypher ATC, with 25 years of experience in the ATC ADM market. The implementation of all the A-CDM here was based on the implementation manual of A-CDM of Eurocontrol with some local adaptations. Just to give you an idea of our operations, I've compared our operations with some European airports that have also A-CDM operations. So in 2019, we had a movement of more than 292,000 flights with more than 43 million passengers at the Guarulhos Airport. Well, The SciFi developed a swim platform that linked to the flight plan and from messages on PCCA. Well, the database system, the CTIMS system that we've developed in the airport, the cipher system that's used by the control tower here, and also the cipher tactic flow used by CGNA and the pre-departure sequencer, which is the cipher tactic PDS. They are all integrated in the ASIS to have an operational system. From the airport viewpoint, what's the greatest advantage with A-CDM? Improvement in flexibility and flight departures. Now we're reaching 80% of what we were in 2019. We're getting to that level, so it's clear for us that the flow is much better here, and it improved due to everything that we had prepared with A-CDM. Just to explain myself better, before A-CDM, we had this range, minus 15 minutes, plus 45 minutes to validate the flight plan. And then the EOBT was in the flight plan, but we did not really know at what time. So in fact, at what time the aircraft would depart. So after the A-CDM, things changed a lot. Uncertainty disappeared, and we managed to get a very good level of predictability. We kept the same range of 15 before and 45 later, but with the use of TOBT, the airline gets the time ready to depart, ready to take off immediately. So with the TOBT information, the system generates a DSAC, which is the time when the airport has to report to, the aircraft has to report. So it's 5 minutes before and 5 minutes later. So with this predictability of TTOT, now we have 90% of the takeoffs here have an accuracy of 3 minutes of the target takeoff time, which is the TTOT. That information is available in the system about 32 minutes before the aircraft takes off. Why 42 minutes before? Well, 30 minutes before the TOBT, the system generates the TSAC based on the TOBT entered into the system. We have an average of taxi out of 12 minutes. So based on this information, we have 30 minutes before the takeoff of the aircraft. Something else we mentioned is the airport viewpoint. From the airport viewpoint, what are the main challenges in this project? First of all, to deal with the implementation throughout the whole pandemic period, because basically we had to do everything remotely without any face-to-face meetings. So this was quite a challenge for us to deal with reluctance to change or resistance to change. So when Now the call is made when there's a TSAC to have a normal airport flow.
To send the pilot TSAT information. That was difficult because we had the participation of the airlines where they started to ask the pilots to call before departure. They established contacts by radio through VHF in order to get the TSAT, the time would call the tower. Another action in parallel to that was that our IT personnel developed our system so that on the screen we could see 30 minutes before departure the TSAT. So we still have that today. The pilot can see the TSAT in advance. Now going to phase 3 of the project, the KPIs were developed and approved in November, and I brought some here to share with you, which are very important. Let me skip this to show you how the tool works. Here we have some results of the improvements that we have in A-CDM. In November 2020, when we had 20% of flights with Mr. TSAT pilot did not go at the time he should. In October of this year, we are close to 3% of flights with Mr. TSAT. The TOBT rejected where the system did not accept them. So in November 2020, we had 1.45%, and now in 2021, 0.99% of rejected TOBTs. The takeoff without TSAT, in other words, a flight that for some reason called earlier or later, and we to leave without the TSAT in November 2020, it was a 4.67%. November 2021, 2.64% of flights taking off without the TSAT. And adherence, average adherence in minutes from the first TSAT to 2020, 0.06 minutes, it's 0.8 minutes approximately. That's the difference from the TSAT generated and the AT. That was the implementation developed in order to apply A-CDM at Guarulhos. The system issues an alert 35 minutes before the TOBT, and have the tool to let know the airline that they need to confirm the TOBT that is in the system based on the EOBT of the flights. So once done that, the system with the TOBT by the airline, the system generates the TSAT with time at which the pilot can request. And here the OTT is the time that the aircraft is foreseen to take off. And this is a screenshot of the KPIs that already in production. We are already using these, and we use them a lot on our work to better understand the flow and the OTP of the flights and everything involved in the departure of the aircraft. So Fabio, that's it. Thank you very much, everybody. If I went too fast, my apologies. But I was worried about only having 10 minutes to talk about our A-CDM.
Muchas gracias,
Thank you
César.
very much, Cesar. I think it was fine with the pace. Well, the interpreters will let me know the words
Voy a aprovechar
fast. But
para abrir al público si alguien quiere
I would
comentar
like to
algo. Veo la
see
mano.
if there are some comments.
yo sé que
Sergio is raising his hand. Sergio, I know that you made a
presentaras el nombre.
comment, but I want to introduce yourself,
Conozcan y
please,
por favor,
your
Sergio.
organization, so everybody may
buenos
know
días,
you.
señores.
Yes, good morning. I'm Sergio Martins.
Yo soy director de SAD
I'm director of the Air Traffic Service for Latin America, but my participation here is a member of the A-CDM working group of those. So my participation here is in representation of council, and in that sense, I would like to iterate to all entities and stakeholders participating here that as representative of council at your disposal.
principalmente aquellos
stakeholders
que
to
todavía no
those stakeholders who don't know much about the operational A-CDM models, to give you a regional
acerca de
educational seminars on the operational model. It's
cuando
just
el
understand
compañero habló acerca de los
when
acronismos, las definiciones,
the definitions, the acronyms, I think that is very important. More important to understand what the acronyms mean is to understand the A-CDM models,
independiente de lo
what
que
they
hagan
are,
en
regardless of
sistemas o independiente de cuáles sean
systems
los
or
sistemas
regardless of the
implementar
available in each country. To implement an A-CDM model in the airport requires many changes of paradigm for the stakeholders, many of them because they don't have to pay in software or system, they don't have a what's the challenge in the change or what impact on their operations. Sandra, congratulations for your presentation and projects. I have two questions. One has to do with what you mentioned about the TOBT alert. The system proactively generates an alert to the airline. I think 30 minutes for the TOBT. My question is, these are 30 minutes before. Is it before the EOBT that is published by the airline, or is it 30 minutes before the forecast made by Cipher to accompanying the arrival of the flight, the meantime of taxiing? Is it something that the system suggests that the EOBT is? That's my first question. The second one, if a pilot calls for pushback after the 5-minute window of TSAT, regardless of whether there is another flight, do they reject the request and ask to submit another TOBT, or do they accept this delay because there is no pressure of a flight in sequence? Sergio, nice to see you. Nice to talk to you. Before the TOBT, which is the forecast based on EOBT, in this slide, we have a place where the airline has to confirm the time of the TOBT. In other words, if the time is not being to comply, going with, they have to change it. But the system uses the EOBT of the flight plan. It's a 35 minutes before, because at 30 minutes before, you have to have the information of the TOBT in order to generate the TSAT. And based on that information of the TOBT, it generates, which is the time at which the aircraft or that it is foreseeing to take off. And the other question, if a pilot calls for pushback, sending the TSAT, regardless of whether there is an operation in sequence for learning purposes, do they the request and another TOBD has to be submitted, or they accepted the delay? Well, the procedure here is to reject.
Lo orienta por la radio que entra en contacto con su línea aérea. Y la línea
They get in contact with the airline, and the airline has to present another TOB to generate another TSAT. There's a concern
estar
in
cambiando, liberando los vuelos sin
changing or conducting the flights without that information, because it can have an impact on the flow of the flights leaving on time.
Entonces, pero analizamos
But
situaciones
we analyze case by case. There are cases in which the pilot
cerca de
is
vencer,
about to meet the deadline, and the airline has to authorize whether the flights may
Les
leave.
felicito por esto porque creo que
Yes,
este es el
congratulations, because I think this is the right path for two
muy
reasons.
difícil de
First,
identificar
it's very difficult to identify
el tráfico va a soportar
when the traffic level will support flexibility. So maybe tomorrow you create the habit that even if the TSAT is overdue, they are authorized, and then it will have an impact on the operation. And also in the future, when you're working with CTOTs, this operation can become more complicated in the airspace. So the fact of releasing a flight where the TSAT windows are overdue may not generate a problem in the airport, but it may in the air. Thank you, congratulations. Something very important that
nosotros partimos del principio acá
was said, and which is that A-CDM is a process, is not a system, but rather a culture. And it's very important for everybody to understand that.
más
Airlines, for the towers to be aware of this. Microphone, please. Microphone, please.
Anteriormente no tenemos más el problema del avión se queda
We no longer have the problem of having the aircraft remaining in the stand, waiting the clearance to leave. The flow is much better now. So that was very positive for us.
Sí, una expresión que me gusta utilizar es que dentro de
And
un
something I like
ambiente
to say is that in an A-CDM environment,
existe
no.
ni entre stakeholder, ni entre el ground handler, la línea aérea, entre la línea aérea y el aeropuerto y la
are no more problems. The concept of SAP work anymore. Everything has to be on target, on time.
Yo tengo la mano
Thank you,
de Sadi.
Sergio. Sadi is raising his
Por
hand.
favor, de Perú.
Sadi from
Gracias,
Peru.
Fabio. Gracias,
Thank
Alexander.
you,
por la-
Fabio. Thank you, Alexander, for your
Una
presentation.
consulta relacionada
One
a
question
el acceso a esta
related to the
plataforma.
access to this platform.
¿Tripulaciones de vuelo tienen
The
algún tipo de
flights,
acceso directo?
do they have any direct
a través
access
de un celular,
through a cell phone or a voice
el
platform?
TSAT que le han asignado?
See the TSAT that has been assigned? Thank you, Sadi, for your question, because I forgot to give you that information. One of the biggest challenges that we faced,
Cypher desarrolló
Cypher developed an application for phones so that pilots with a login could access and see the time assigned for the flight. So
general por
as a
línea aérea,
gesture
pueden
by
accesar por el
airline,
celular.
they can access it through
Chat de
cell
ellos.
phone and can see their time. So it's an easier tool.
La pantalla del VGPS que presenta también la hora del TSAT.
We have also a display in front of the pilot that shows the time.
Gracias, Sadi. ¿Tenías
Thank
algo-
you, Sadi.
algo más?
Were you going to say something else?
Solo agradecer la respuesta.
No, just to
Gracias, Sadi. Adelante,
thank you, Sadi. Francisco?
Francisco Seida. Ucier, perdón.
Gracias, Fabio.
Francisco Ucieda? Thank you, Fabio. Thank you very much. Congratulations, Alexander. Very good presentation. The truth is that I had the same question as Sadi about the TSAT sent to the pilots. I see that there's an application through the cell phone. Have you considered any other type of technology for having that same contact? Maybe data link, AirMax?
Mira, Francisco, todavía no hemos empezado a
We haven't started yet to think about something like that, but it's something that we need to discuss with Cypher to see what link we can have through the systems that the aircraft have, the data link, or the other one, ARINC or CETA? ARINC or CETA? Yes, but that is something that we can consider for the future.
Yo no sé si alguien más tiene problemas con la voz.
Anybody else is having problems with Alexander? Can you hear him? Yes, it was choppy. Okay, Francisco, thank you very much for your comments. It's something for the future. Maybe we can develop it to see how we can send the information to the pilots, maybe through ACRES. Now I remember the name, via ACRES or ARINC.
Muchas gracias, Alexander. Sí, efectivamente.
Thank you, Alexander. Yes, I was thinking of ACRES.
Vía una aplicación de celular.
The solution through an application in the cell phone, many times these solutions are more simple than what you expect. And I think that a cell application does work. If it works, fine. If the system works, well, let's use it.
Gracias.
Thank you. We continue with Julio Cesar. Julio, please introduce yourself. Go ahead with your question. Thank you, Fabio. It's a pleasure. Julio Pereira. I'm Assistant Director of Safety and Flight Operations of IATA.
Hola César, mucho gusto en verte.
Hello, Cesar. Nice to see you here.
Muchas reuniones juntos ahí.
We're participating in many meetings in Guarulhos, including A-CDM. Well, I know about the system. I don't have many doubts. And the issue is just that you have, obviously, you've only been operating A-CDM for 1 year, but have you been able to see if there has been any gain in terms of efficiency for flight operations, for instance, a reduction of a taxi out and punctuality?
Bueno, yo creo que tú ya un poco has dicho que sí
Think
se
you
ganó un poco en puntualidad.
that you gained
Y si esa
punctuality,
fue
and whether that punctuality was compared with SOBT of the airline, and
un poco
if you could tell us
ganancia desde el
how
punto de vista de
the
la
gains from the
sea.
point of view of the airline, in other words, a taxi out. Thank you. Hello, Julio. Nice to see you here. Very good question. In fact, we saw an improvement in OTP, but comparing with January 2021, because we still, with the pandemic, we had very low operations at the airport. June, May of this year, we had 98% of OTP.
Fuera eso, ¿me entiende? Es lo que nosotros deseamos mucho, pero
We want it's impossible to maintain such a level of
Y
fee,
es
but
muy importante entender cómo la herramienta está ayudando el flujo de aeropuerto y los vuelos
is helping, and the flights are leaving much faster than before. Today, we have, well, in the past, we had approximately close to 2% of delays due to ATC on the apron, and now we have reduced that to
0,90%.
0.9%.
De los aviones pasaron por las taxiways, por la pista, y no tenemos una
And
manera de
don't have a way
comparando
of
con
measuring
2019,
as
porque teníamos
comparing 2019, because we had a scenario that was
tenemos
completely different from what we have now. So we have to start to have the volume of operations that we had before in order to see the positive impact of A-CDM regarding the taxi house. We still don't see any significant improvement, and I dare to say that something about 1 minute of reduction
no sabemos cuenta.
we are obtaining, but I don't know if it's due to A-CDM or because of the number of flights that we have. So it's something that now in 2022, with the increase in the number of,
90%
we're going to get to 90% of what we had before. I think that we'll have a better idea.
Muchas gracias, César, y hace
Thank
mucho
you.
sentido. Es
It makes sense. We really
en el proyecto
that
Arquímedes.
challenge
Estamos intentando
our
hacer
project. And what we are trying to do is measure peak hours to see if they are similar.
completamente de
And
acuerdo
so I fully agree
con la pandemia, es
in the
bien
sense
difícil
with the pandemic,
medir los indicadores.
it's very
Gracias.
difficult to measure the indicators. So thank you.
Gracias, Julio. Tengo también
Thank
la
you,
mano
Julio. I
de-
also see the hand of Livio Benitez from Peru.
Creo que bajó
Somebody
la
else from
mano.
Peru
Adelante, Livio, por favor.
raising his hand. Okay, Livio, go ahead. Yes, good morning, everybody. My question has to do with the flights that are not usual, for instance, military flights or general aviation flights that are going to use the airport. Are they considered within their procedures, or are they given an exception? What's the procedure with them? Very good question, Livio. Good morning.
Acá en el aeropuerto de Guarulhos,
Here in Guarulhos, all the flights that take off here are under the A-CDM procedure: military, general aviation, cargo flights, and regular flights, scheduled flights. They are all under A-CDM procedures, and no flights taking off from here is not in the system or hasn't it generated. We have many problems with aviation. We have close to more or less 25 flights of general aviation per day, and they have to enter the bus. The owner many times arrives at any time, so it's very difficult to microphone, please. It's very difficult. Today we have 700 flights between arrivals and departures at the airport. So general aviation represents a very small percentage considering the size of the operations. Thank you for your answer.
Muchas gracias. Ya te soltamos, Alexander.
Thank you. Just one more, Alexander, and then I think we're getting to the end of our session for today. We have Sergio. Before moving to Sergio, I just wanted to say that in the chat, William of Delta Airlines spoke about the conversation on the systems, and he says that we should also take into account airing, not only CETA, because other airlines use that other option. So the message is to take into account the needs of the stakeholders or find a solution that is open to everybody.
Paso con
So,
Sergio, que tiene la mano levantada.
Sergio,
Y luego ahí hacemos
and then we wrap up.
Sí, solo
Yes, Sergio.
una consulta.
Yes,
y ahí puede
just a
que
question. And Alexander or Julio from IATA will have something to say about that. My question is, this is a issue of wherever A-CDM is implemented. In the future, at some point in time, the aircraft is ready, has the TOBT, but the TSAS comes after the TOBT, be it because of the management of the airport, the airspace, but the aircraft cannot start a pushback and the taxi when they want. So my question is, when there is a delay, who should be assigned that delay? In those cases in which the aircraft does not leave at the time foreseen because the TSAS after the TOBT, how is that addressed in Brazil? Oh.
Sergio, muy buena pregunta.
A very good question, Sergio.
Ya pasamos
Here,
por muchas veces.
we already went through that. Many
Se carga en la
signed.
Tenemos no tráfico
How can I say it? Not to air traffic, to
del aeropuerto, ¿me entiendes?
Airports movement control. It would be an infrastructure delay in our case, because that has happened. We had between the TSAT and the EOBT, the delay has to be based on
SOBT.
the SOBT, not the TOBT. For instance, they leave, what I have here on the screen, the flight leaves at 15 hours and they put the TOBT as 2:15, but the same TSAT was issued at 2, but there are occasions in which the TSAT is issued after the time of the departure. It's our delay in that case, and we have no problem. But it's arranged with the airline. What I cannot accept is when the TSAT is at the time of the and the pilot takes 5 more minutes to request the pushback and the departure. Yes, just give you some support in this conversation. At some point in time, this will be more as traffic increases, be it because of runway conditions or anything else, there will be many more. And that's why we need A-CDM. There will be many flights in which the TSAS will come after the TOBT. In other words, the flight will be delayed because of sequencing of A-CDM. If there is no flight, it's because the A-CDM, well, there was no depletion of the airspace or the airport infrastructure. The question at the global level was that at some point in time, we thought of having an A-CDM delay code. I know that your control was that, and there is no incident, there is no possibility that the operational model of A-CDM will generate a delay. What the operational model will show that so as not to generate a long line at the airport, so as not to create congestion in the airspace, that flight should not start taxiing and takeoff maneuvers. So it's not the A-CDM that is generating the delay, but rather it is showing that because of a saturation in traffic, it makes no sense for this aircraft to start moving
Porque en algún momento esta discusión surge.
because that has already happened at the global level. Right, I agree with you.
Bueno, muchas gracias.
Well, thank you very much, Cesar, for your presentation. I think that it was very fruitful, many discussions. It's already 11.
De hoy.
We're finishing our session today. And let me share my screen, the proposal for the agenda for tomorrow.
Pantalla, Alexandra, solo para poder yo tomarla acá.
Estoy tentando acá.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Para mañana tenemos
Well, so tomorrow we have presentations from Bogota Airport, Lima Airport, and quick participations from ACLAC and Cancer. But the important thing for us is to generate some conclusions and discussion. First of all, in the Bogota presentation, we will talk about the regional guide, and as Sadie mentioned, we could even take a look at the guide they're doing at the end of the day tomorrow. And finally, before we leave, I'd like to ask whether any of you wanted to say something additional if you have not taken the floor before. All right. I guess nobody does. I just want to thank you for your participation today. We hope to see you back tomorrow to share experiences from all the airports I mentioned and see what conclusions we can draw. The important thing is to get some feedback for the regional guide. This would be all then. Thank you very much and have a great day. Thank you, Fabio.
Adiós.
Gracias. Gracias.